Hey, hello. How is everybody? This is very strange that I can't see or hear you coming back. um, I want to, at the outset, just say I hope that this is not disrupted by my whining dog or my arguing children or the very loud conference calls that my husband has downstairs. We divided up the house. I have the upstairs, he has the downstairs, and for the most part, that works out pretty well as a distribution. So I'm appreciative for the opportunity to be here. I just want to say I know how weird this is for everybody, and I know how scary it is, and I know how hard it is. So, um, just wanted to thank you all at the beginning for hanging in there with us and helping us all get through it. I know that that's one of the things that West is known for, right? We stick together, and that's definitely something I've been experiencing. And it just comes times like this show you who you are. And, now more than ever, I'm just so glad that I'm at West. So I took some notes on the questions that were submitted in advance. And thank you so much to those of you who did that. I will try and get through all of them. I'm not going to toggle back and forth on my screen because I think that would be really annoying for you. But I sort of organized them in terms of themes. So I got lots that were about graduation, about prom, about sports, about testing and summer school, and whether I could predict if we'll be back in school this year. And I kind of put those all together into a category under the heading, these are things we can't really know more about until we get better guidance from the state. And, around the way, I'm hearing chatter that we'll get some tomorrow. I thought we would get some today, maybe, but I know that they have task forces and whatnot meeting to talk about how this will all work. For right now, I don't really have an answer. I can say that we are, look, here's where we're at. We're trying pretty hard to preserve these events because they're really meaningful, right? Everything is meaningful, especially for the seniors. This year is supposed to be something that it isn't right now, and that's out of everyone's control. Recognizing that we have limited control, what we want to do is hold on for as long as it's feasible to the plans that we have, and then make our best decisions in the moment for the plans that might have to come if we change or cancel. I think that's a decision that happens at the district level, and at least with respect to graduation, and the three buildings would coordinate. I personally want to find some way to do something meaningful. I wrote a speech. I'm revising it, obviously, but for the kids, they deserve a graduation. I still can't even really get my head around it. So I just want to reassure you that we will do whatever we possibly can to preserve the events. If we can't preserve them, we will work powerfully hard to come up with something and cooperate with the students. I know I see Mr. Alberth on the chat. I know you've been meeting with Stuco to come up with ideas. We will cooperate with the kids and come up with alternatives that give your families, your whole families, the congratulations they deserve to mark this passage. It means something for us how and when we send your kids off, and we want to do it the right way. We can't do it the way that we always have, but we'll do our best to do it well. So for things like testing, we know we're not going to have the SAT in April. The state has told us that much. What they do for testing beyond, I don't know what SAT will decide, or if the state would decide. I've thought it wouldn't be right for me to speculate. I've heard a lot of different suggestions about how they could handle it, but I know a lot of our kids count on that SAT. So I think we'll just have to find some way to make that work. We're subject to what ISB tells us. Similarly with sports, I got a question about spring sports. I did see something from the IHSA today that said that they will consider extending the season depending on when we get to go back to school. And I feel like their mentality is probably really similar to ours, which is fight like heck to preserve what you can and then make the best adaptations you can if that's not possible. So that's what I would say about all of those things: graduation, prom, sports. A question about summer school. Right now, summer school is in limbo. It was almost all planned. Not really, but we were in the process of sectioning and hiring teachers. And at this point, we just don't know where this is going to take us. and we'll need some more guidance from the state on what the end of the school year looks like. Currently, the governor's closure lasts until April 7th. Everybody knows that, I think, but beyond that is unclear. And a lot of people have suggested that they would like to see more guidance or something a little bit more permanent than 2 weeks at a time, because I speak from experience. It's hard to stabilize your household when you're working in 2 weeks at a time, and the uncertainty is beyond that. And whenever I start to get pretty frustrated with the lack of knowledge and the lack of control that I know I have to just accept, I try to keep perspective. I look at New York City and I hope that I'm still worried about state testing, and I hope that I'm still worried about how to organize summer school in a few weeks. So I think my first priority is that I hope all of our kids and their families are safe and well, and that our community holds together. So I got some questions about e-learning, and this is definitely a situation where we're refining as we go. This week is a dress rehearsal. Last week we did a test run. Let's just make sure our communication systems work. We closed with relatively short notice, so we wanted to make sure the teachers had a way to communicate with kids and make sure that they could outline their systems for kids. Some teachers were a little further along on the continuum of readiness, and some teachers weren't as much. And I have to say that in the intervening week or two, I've lost track of 9 days. I've been really, really impressed with the way our teachers have come together and collectively amassed their professional expertise on how to do this and do it well, and shared. So our district organizes a daily Zoom call every day at 8 o'clock. Teachers can log on, and our director of adult learning has organized for people to ask questions and share ideas. And there are a lot of questions, but there are also an awful lot of ideas. And I've been really impressed with the way teachers have been trying to lean in and trying to help each other get it right. So it's real on Monday, real, quote unquote, real e-learning starts on Monday for us in District 207. The governor's language has been, and the ISB's language has been pretty clear that the work that happens during this time can only be used for enrichment or to improve a student's academic standing. And so I think that that's hard for teachers who are used to trying to get everybody and cover the range of learning attitudes and readiness that we see. So, we know that we're not business as usual. So we have a lot of information on the district's website. There's a whole e-learning tab, and we add to that regularly. I know that there's a document in progress that our assistant principals for teaching and learning at all 3 schools and our director of adult learning are writing together, one for teachers and one for parents, in parallel, that we would push out. I think Thursday is probably too optimistic, but it should be ready by Friday to account for any announcements the governor might make today or tomorrow, because he might. So that will give a little bit more about the specifics of how e-learning works. But I've been thinking a lot about it sort of thematically, and I just want to share from my own house, if that's okay, since home is work now. Boundaries are kind of blurry. So I have 2 kids, an 8th grader and a 5th grader, and one of them is so tuned into school and very much attached to the learning process in her classes. She came in here a little while ago frustrated at something about these equations that didn't make sense online. And she's doing every bit of e-learning that her teachers could push out to her, and they are nowhere near as ready as we were. Just saying. She's doing every single bit of e-learning she can get her hands on because she's afraid that she's going to stop learning. She wants to be connected to school. She likes it. She's that kid. I don't know where she came from. She's that kid. My other daughter, her definition of e-learning is how many TikTok dances can I learn when mom and dad are both on calls. So for the one kid, the older daughter, I feel like she needs and deserves for school to be engaging and connected to her. She needs challenges. She needs puzzles. She wants to learn. She wants to be engaged. I think a lot of our kids are there too. And then there's probably an awful lot of the kids like mine, my younger daughter, who if you give them 5 or 6 hours and a computer and an internet hookup, they may or may not use it productively in the way that you and I might define productive learning. What I have to say about that is this: the best we can do is the best we can do. You know, I can't parent my kid 24/7. I can't coordinate her e-learning if I'm on calls all day, which I have been. Um, if I'm on calls all day trying to navigate food distribution and e-learning and cabinet meetings and so on. And I know that if you're sheltering at home, if you're working from home, you're in the same boat. A lot of our teachers are definitely in the same boat, where they might only have an hour or two to log into work before they have to go back, for kids who aren't as self-sufficient as mine. So we're all doing the best we can do. And my touchstone for whether my kids are doing enough is, how are they? If I think that Kate has been on screens way too long and needs something constructive to do, she's going to lose her computer for a little while, and she's going to read an actual book or go for a walk or take the dog out or do a chore. And it's not necessarily the progress she's making academically that's telling me, or the assignments that her teachers have sent home, because they're not. I mean, they're okay. And I'm really grateful for the teachers for trying to make the best they can out of a bad situation. And for the other daughter, I actually tell her, take a step back, practice your music, go read a book for fun, go for a walk, exercise, leave your computer alone, for different reasons, and they manifest differently for different kids. So that's kind of, I don't know if this medium without someone to interrupt me and ask me questions is good for me, because I can just ramble. But if you have some things, let's get some things in the chat and some questions. But e-learning is real on Monday. We'll get more information about how it's going to happen, how credit might be awarded. All of that is contingent on whether the governor brings us back or sends us out for good. Kansas is sent out for good. I think Virginia, I think Indiana. And I've lost track. So I have no idea. I really don't. It depends on which models you really pay attention to when you look at the public health info that's coming out. Some of the maps, I've been a medical professional in my family directed me towards the Johns Hopkins maps, and they're kind of grim. I don't know. Maybe we're all wrong, but I'm kind of just trying to focus on connecting with kids any way I can. So I have an Instagram chat on Friday at 2:30 for them, if anyone's interested. I've never done YouTube Live before, and I've never done Instagram before, but new times. This is how we stretch. I got a question about how many kids were able to check in for e-learning last week. So e-learning was the test run last week, just for teachers to establish their systems. And I don't have any specific data, so I couldn't give a percentage. E-learning is ongoing this week, so I don't have any data for this week either. This is the dress rehearsal, so to speak. But I can share anecdotally that the teachers in the Zoom chats, and I have been logging into those every day, those teachers have shared that it's uneven, but that they get several, and that what their kids share are reactions to how good it feels to be together again, or to see their teachers and connect with them visually. And that means the world to us. It's poignant, really. And I haven't heard any numbers or anything, but I think it's, I think if people are in a range of situations, not everybody can log on and do this. And we're doing the best we can to distribute hotspots and make sure people's tech works. But we have to also be flexible. So I don't even know what our expectations would be. I think what I told my teachers was, do the best you can. If you design a great learning experience for 30 kids and only 8 access it, that's 8 kids who accessed it when none of them would if we didn't do this. So do the best you can, and anything, good enough is going to be awesome. And anything that you can do is a positive step for you and for kids. So there's a question on the chat: what time are children expected to sign in on Monday? Off the top of my head, I don't know, but I can tell you where you can find out. There is a schedule, and we designed a schedule so that we are running a block each day. We're running a block, so it's even, odd, even, odd. that will give kids a little bit less to keep track of on a given day. It'll open up broader windows for teachers if they do try and do something in real time, which is hard. Um, so that schedule is accessible on the e-learning page of the district website. Um, Mr. Allworth, I don't know if you can put a link in the chats. I see you on there. Thank you, by the way, for doing this. If you could grab it off the website and put the link in the chat, then people would be able to access it right away, and that would be pretty great. How are your kids doing? I keep thinking about grief. I keep thinking about whether they, feel the same sense of loss that I think most of us do. I've heard from so many adults, and people feel like they are. It's just everybody's kind of out of sorts. We're all trying to do the best we can, but no one has ever been in a situation like this, and there isn't a playbook for it. So, it's every chance is a chance to learn. So I've mentioned my graduation speech before, and I am revising it. And this experience obviously has to be a part of it. I don't want it to dominate it because I mean, 4 years at Maine West, and this second semester of senior year should be something different. And I don't want that to be the only thing that they think about. But with respect to this, I keep thinking, you have a choice. You can focus on what you lost, or you can focus on what you found. You can focus on what got taken away, but you could also focus on what has been given. So my dog is really happy. My dog has had 24/7 company, and she can find the silver lining. She doesn't really know what's going on, but I don't know. I don't know if your students are finding any success in finding silver linings, or if they're coping okay. Um, yeah, so the comment, it's tough on seniors, the rest are okay, but going back in the fall will be really tough if that's the next time they step into school. Yeah, it is. And we've been giving a lot of thought and a lot of conversation to the seniors, and how we can make this um, something fitting and rewarding as they close out. Whether we're back in school or not, they're going to need a little extra TLC. So Mr. Albrecht points out in the chat that the schedule doesn't mean that all students need to be logged in during these times, but they are reserved in the event that teachers want to meet. That's right. So we recognize that that this looks different for every house, and it looks different for every teacher's house. So we have just tried to make that block of time available so that teachers aren't stepping on each other. So a kid doesn't get pulled into Spanish and history at the same time if both teachers want to schedule an in-person meet, or a Google Meet, or a Zoom, or whatever we're using. So that was why the block schedule was suggested. That came out of the Zoom conferences that we've been having with teachers, and they said this would make sure that our kids aren't being overwhelmed. And they have just, you can't get a group of teachers and tell them to turn it off. Even if they're not coming to school, they're thinking about kids. So that's been great. Any chance of school starting earlier in the fall? It depends. I think we'll have to see. One of the questions I got was about the emergency days. Technically, we still haven't used them because these have been act of God days, so they don't count against our attendance requirement, the required number of days. Something tells me we're going to need more than 5 if we do go into using emergency days. There isn't a category for this. The state doesn't really have a category for this because act of God doesn't really have provisions for how we give credit. Some kids need graduation credits. How do we do that if we're all in act of God days? How do we close out the school year if we were to have to close out the school year? There isn't a category. We have to define that. My hope is that districts get the latitude to define some of that ourselves, because I feel like among us, the 3 schools and the district leadership can do a pretty good job of that. So I'm hoping for fewer constraints from the state, but a little bit of guidance. I don't know what school. I can't think past April 7th, to be really honest. I mean, obviously I have to, and I try to, but in terms of my predictions, I really only know as far as they've told me I can know. Yeah. Let's see. So, there's a little prompt box in the bottom of my YouTube screen, and it says "say something," and I'm hearing it in different tones of voice. Say something. Say something. Hi, Lena's mom. How are you? Do I have volunteer opportunities? I saw that on the Google form and I teared up. I really did. Right now, we don't. I can't. I can't tell you how many people have volunteered, staff and families, to help us with our kids, especially for those who need food and can't get it. Right now, we really want to adhere to the governor's request that people stay in place. We are a part of a food distribution model now, where we are able to give meals on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and District 62 is giving meals on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So with that kind of coordination, we're able to manage those distributions pretty well with our staff. So we have 12-month admin, and in each building, that's the principal's main administrative team, and we're rotating so that we want to minimize the number of people in the building if we can. We've been asked to stay away, and we'd really like to adhere to that. So we have the leeway under the governor's directive to deliver food because that's an essential service, or rather distribute food because that's an essential service. So let's see. If we have other opportunities to volunteer, we will definitely put them out there. That's one thing I know about Des Plaines and the Maine West community. Generally, if we put out the call, people show up. So I will definitely communicate about that. Any e-learning will be treated as extra credit and only count positively towards grades, or will it not count at all? As of now, during the Act of God days, I can't go beyond April 7th with those because we don't know what's beyond April 7th. But for now, under the provisions that ISB has given us, any e-learning that people do now can only help. It can't hurt. So it can be enrichment, it can be extension, it could be makeup work. It could only help. I don't think it could be extra credit. It's enrichment or remediation of academic standing. So we really hope that we get to use this opportunity for kids who might be failing one or more classes to dig in and do some of that work. You know, as a teacher, there were a lot of times when I wish we could hit pause and I could go and get some of my people and help them out and bring them forward. And for better or for worse, we have that pause. So, and thank you. I'm sorry I used an acronym. ISB is Illinois State Board of Ed. I probably used that about 5 times early in the chat. Let's see what else I could say. I took all of my notes, and so how are kids coping? Can you put some things in the chat? What are some specific things that kids are doing? Are they exercising? Are they getting out and walking around? Are they finding that they have access to learning activities that they would need? Are they able to connect with friends and still maintain social distance? What are some of their strategies for getting around those things? Is anyone sick? How are people feeling? I don't necessarily want you to reveal in the chat whether you're sick, but it would be, if there's any way that we can help families who are struck by that, we'd like to know. We're not recording or taking that information or collecting that information. I did get a question on the chat on the Google form. If we have any known cases in District 207, I'm sure we do, but they're not known cases. There's such limited availability of testing that I think we almost certainly have people who are sick, who have COVID-19, who won't be able to confirm that because they might not be sick enough to get a test, and thank God for that. So I honestly don't know if my staff is sick, if my kids are sick, if their families are sick. And that's hard. That's part of what's really difficult about this. So I'm glad to see that kids are bonding, and I'm glad that the sunshine came. That helps a lot. I too have found that my kids do better with a daily schedule. It's not always easy to get them to stick to it, and we can't actively supervise that in the way that one of them at least needs. But that's good. Anything that you get some structure and some exercise and some sunshine, I'm in the upstairs bedroom right now. That's my assigned workspace, and I have the window open, and I've seen more foot traffic down my street than I've ever seen living here. So I love to see the family time and the bonding. That's very good. Mine kind of alternate between bonding and uniting against us and um, fighting. So, but that's good. I see some practicing interest instruments. That's terrific. Um, Cangelosi, that's guitar, right? Your kids are guitarists, so I bet they're having a good time with that. So, and Dr. Pressler, you're on there. Thank you. Thanks for coming aboard. Video game playing and too much eating. Um, well, I don't know about the eating, but I'm glad to hear that people are connecting through social media. Exercising through apps is good. Board games they haven't touched in years. Yeah, that's a terrific one. What are the good board games? What board games do the high schoolers like? Mine are getting kind of sick of Settlers of Catan and Monopoly. Um, so we miss sports a lot. Um, we miss everything, right? I miss your kids. I hate working from home. I really do. I hate to whine about it, but I don't enjoy having home and work together. I do much better with separation. Also, my tech equipment is much better at school. Um, Monopoly is good. That's good. Um, let's see. So, oh yeah, I got a little prompt to remember that to remind you that I am going to record this and we will post it on the website probably tomorrow or maybe this evening. I don't know when we're posting it on the website, honestly, but we're posting it on the website so that people can have access to it. You know, I think I'll get better at it the more I do. Is there a plan if they decide to resume classes, but families don't feel comfortable sending their kids to school? That's a great question. There isn't a plan for that, but I think parents always have the ultimate discretion to make make the decision about what's best for their kid. And if my kid's principal is open school right now, I wouldn't send them, and I would take what comes from that. I mean, I would hope that they would be flexible about that and treat it like an excused absence where my kid would have an opportunity to do makeup work and everything else. I don't think I would expect them to design whole different learning experiences for my kids, but I do think it's your kid. It's your you are the parent. So I think we respect that for a lot of different reasons, and I think we would come up with some plan to make it fair, make it work. So um oh, that's great. There will be a video that we have about social and emotional health and well-being of kids during this kind of unprecedented closure. So there's a question about, is school being cleaned and disinfected while we are out? Yes. The maintenance team had made its way through most of the school with a deep clean. I know that there's specific details about what the deep clean entails. I can't really describe it all to you. There's bleach involved, and they promise that it kills the virus if it's live. From what we understand, the virus only survives on surfaces for about 72 hours. So by now, any would have died already anyway. But we have done a deep clean. They're still doing asbestos abatement connected to construction, and we will do a deep clean again before anybody comes back. And we've also been restricting who gets to come on board. Let's see. Good. I'm seeing some good things. We will pull in some parents to give us some help for planning when the time comes to get more specific about what will happen for seniors end of the year. And thanks for that. Thanks for all the volunteers and for the offers to help. Anyone have any suggestions for some ways that we can engage the kids virtually? Maybe Mr. Aldworth, do you want to share some of the things that you and student council have been talking about? Um, some of the plans that you've been discussing, especially for next week. You could put that in the chat. I'll read it out loud too if you're not watching the chat. For future questions, who do we call or email? I would say that you could call or email me, and you can access my contact info through the website. And I will be doing more of these. I haven't scheduled all but one. I've only scheduled this one, but I'll be doing more. And then, as Mr. Aldworth pointed out, for things like the activities, you can email him. We are watching updates on the IHSA, the Illinois High School Athletics Association. We're watching those as we go, but I know that Mr. Kirshner is also available for questions via email too. Hypothetically speaking, if schools won't reopen for the rest of the school year, is Maine West prepared to engage students via preferably mandatory e-learning? We are. And I think that we're probably, from what I can tell, just talking to my other friends, I think we're in a pretty good position actually to manage via e-learning, and we're growing by leaps and bounds out of necessity. So we're even further along this week than we were 10 days ago. The only thing I want to point out about e-learning is that it's terrific and we're in a good position, but there are equity issues inherent in e-learning because not everybody can access the same things. And some people have limited internet connectivity or slow internet connectivity or family circumstances that don't allow them to participate in real-time meetings. So there are significant real constraints that affect some kids more than others. So we absolutely want to keep our kids engaged and enriched. We want learning to continue. There's a whole bunch of different kind of learning that we could explore in this scenario that we don't do in regular school. And I do think that we can make some things mandatory, but I think we have to be careful in how much things count. There is an achievement gap. There's a gap in equity nationwide and probably globally, if I'm to be honest. And there's only so much we can do to mitigate it, but we can't widen it. And I think we have to be very deliberate in what we set up for e-learning to make sure it's fair to all. We can't hold anybody back. We want to make sure every kid gets the chance to engage and grow. That's their fundamental right. That's what they deserve. But we also want to make sure that we're not widening disadvantages that some of our kids face. I'm very excited to hear that some of the things that we're seeing that they're planning in Stuco will come out through Instagram and Twitter on those handles. An issue with the links. There's a question on the chat about an issue with the links. And I'm not sure which links you mean, if they're the links to e-learning or the links through that the website has. I will send out, or is it just specific to this chat? I will send out the chat via, the recording will be shared, and I will schedule another one. There's also an opportunity online on the district website to access support for tech. If we already have a system set up so that we can manage some Chrome Depot swap outs and repairs through the same system that we use when we do food distribution. It's not perfect, and it's not as good as our Chrome Depot is during school, because those guys are awesome. But we have come up with ways that we can help with tech. There's a Google form on the website. There's access to a Google form that you can use to reach out and get some help. If you haven't already seen Mr. Aldworth's MW Kindness Challenge, I think that would be great if you checked that out or encouraged your kids to. That's one way that they can connect. And let's see. Just trying to see if I missed any questions. Oh, it's haikus. Oh. Mr. Allworth, about how many haikus so far? So this is maybe a good time to ask some questions on my end. So what would be a suggestion for how frequently I should do these chats? Again, I'll get better at them. Will seniors get senior shirts? That is something that probably the senior class officers, class council, would coordinate and discuss, and that would be one of the questions um, to forward to activities. So I think I'm going to throw that one to Mr. Aldworth. You could email him or the senior class sponsors. They could maybe let you know an update on what those plans are. Okay, once a week. Is there a time of day that's better? Weekly. Good. Yeah, the information is changing very, very quickly. Okay, once a week. That's the people have spoken. That's kind of what I was thinking, and at least that for the kids, if not a little bit more. I don't know if the kids would really want to hang out with me, but I feel like I should give them the opportunity at least to hang out with each other. Um, okay, so there's your answer on senior shirts. Um, yeah, these chats are good, and um, I think it's worthwhile for people to have the forum at least to, even if a lot of my answers have been, I don't know, and it depends, and we're waiting to hear, um, at least you know where we are, and we're all on the same page, more or less. Does anyone have any funny stories out of the layoff, out of the school closing? I heard about the board games; those are good. I'm glad that the weather is helping with people getting some exercise. There's some quality time with pets. Um, have the kids had any really positive experiences to take their minds off of the uncertainty? Any good news? Any surprises or any unexpected amusing connections or got chased for food when we went shopping? Okay, that sounds like a hoarding story. Somebody was wow, you were after a high demand item. Wow. Well, like we say, these experiences bring out the best and they sometimes bring out the worst. uh, good. So everybody's learning to do tech a little better. Google Handouts have been fun. A lot more FaceTime with grandparents. That's good. One thing that might be nice. So I don't know if this is an easy thing for anybody to do, but you know, I feared what it would look like if my daughters had too much time on their hands, and what all that unfilled time would look like. And a friend of mine, I noticed one of our staff members was really concerned because her mother is in a nursing home and she couldn't go to visit her. So someone put out her address and I made my kids write her a letter. They wrote, and then there's another staff member whose mother's in a nursing home and he can't visit her. And so they wrote her a letter. And at first, Anna said, well, what am I supposed to write? I don't know this lady. And I said, well, what do you think she would want to hear? I mean, she doesn't have contact with her grandkids right now. So what do you write to your grandmas? So then they wrote notes to their other grandmas because my mom and my mother-in-law are not very tech savvy. So they went old school and they did paper and pencil. Um, I'd love to hear about kids doing stuff like that because, there are people who are alone and with compromised health. Both my mother and mother-in-law can't go outside. They're completely shut in right now and have been for a while. So, and that's good. I think they need to be. We want to keep them around. So there are probably a lot of people who are alone, and especially in a community that really connects to our high school the way we do. Um, I think it would be cool if we got kids together and did some letter writing. That they might really appreciate that. Our kids are something that our community unites around. So maybe we could help them connect. I got a lot of questions about volunteer opportunities, and I'd love to think about what that looks like in a virtual world. And I'm making some notes. maybe Key Club or, another group could help with that. I really don't have a future as a stand-up comedian. Mr. Aldworth, I'd reach out to the Frisbee Center and see if there's a way to connect our generations. I love that. Yeah, my husband from an Eastern European country came home from shopping and declared, I never thought I would have to go to 5 stores in search of toilet paper in America. Um, I haven't really checked our toilet paper stores, but maybe I should. I haven't been inventorying our closet. Mr. Oliver's sixth grader won an NBA, I don't two oh 2020 Xbox game through a district tournament on a court shot at the buzzer. Um, Thank you for the encouragement. I don't really know what to say. I miss the normal. Um, it's strange in the context of social distancing. Um, we are talking about social distancing. It keeps making me think about boundaries and how we're trying to impose them, physical distance, for the sake of for everybody's health and the preservation and this huge collective action that we have to take to keep people safe and flatten the curve. I'm sure most people have seen that graph. So as we practice social distancing, we're imposing a boundary, but every other boundary in my life that I can think of is completely obliterated. Viruses don't know boundaries, and what they've done to our social boundaries is really interesting, but not in a good way. So it's not like thinking about something is just interesting feels better. Um, but home and school are completely bound up now. Um, I don't know. It's strange. In a way, I'm at a distance from my neighbors, but I can see them all out my window. They've all walked by. And, that's distant but closer than when they didn't walk by. It's interesting. Some of the comments on the threads that suggested that families are playing board games or, um, exercising together. And those are bringing you closer, even though we're imposing distance. It's an interesting phenomenon. We are missing sports. I went to my last game and didn't know it. Yeah. Other than that, we are making the best of it. Yeah. I do feel bad for the kids who are just getting ready to begin their spring sports. Most of the winter athletes, at least at West, the West athlete, the winter athletes got to close theirs. But not track, right? But almost all of the others, as I'm thinking about it. But the spring sports kids were just gearing up, and um, I did, what I saw from the IHSA suggests that they might consider extending the season beyond the currently scheduled dates. So if we come back to school, they'll resume and they'll make some adjustments to see if we can preserve seasons. But it all depends on whether we go back to school or when we go back to school. So if we have to be in it for the long haul, I'm really pleased and proud of how our community is doing so far. The kids have been great. What I've seen from them has been great online, and the teachers have been reporting really positive interactions with their kids. A lot of teachers have said that the kids say it's just good to see you. I don't know if we're used to ever getting that feedback at school, when we can take that sort of thing for granted. Now I think that maybe this will mean something different. Again, we can choose to focus on what we've lost or on what we found or gained. And maybe when we come back, things will be a little bit different. I think about how focused I was on attendance issues at school, about kids ditching class. And that almost seems funny now when I'd give anything to have them back, whether they're in class or not. I want them to go to class when they're in school. But this really does change. Um, my son is having issues with two subjects that he was getting tutored for, possibly with no summer school. I'm concerned. Um, I think that if there's one thing that's just dramatically true in this whole situation is that we as a school have to learn how to be flexible. So that means that we work this out in ways that help your son. So he's getting tutored, and either we find a way to keep giving him that support. E-learning might work well for him in a way if it gives his teacher time to give him more specific support or more individual support. And we have not made any kind of a decision about summer school at all, except that we are focused on getting most of our kids most of what they need in the event of, in the event that we have to do credit recovery or something. So we will find a way to help the kids who need academic and social support, and summer school might be one of those ways. It'll look different. It's almost certainly going to look different than what we planned, but we will have something. That I can say for sure. Make a special Facebook page for this purpose for Maine West parents to connect, and we can post things during the week until the next chat. That might be worth doing. Yeah, I've opened 2 new accounts just in the last 3 days. So a YouTube account and an Instagram account. So I could give Facebook a try. Why not? I draw the line though. I'm not doing it anymore. I draw the line at Facebook. In teacher preparation, we learn about wait time. When you ask a question and the kids don't immediately have an answer, you have to let that silence hold there for a little bit, because sometimes you get in the rhythm where you just call on the first kid who answers, and so you learn wait time. Let that silence sit there for a little bit. Let kids think. Let them process. They're going to process at different speeds, and that kid's ideas, the kid who processes a little bit more slowly might have a better idea than on any given question than another kid. So wait time, wait time, wait time. It's really hard to do on a video chat. Wait time. My dog. I don't know where she is now. I think she's joining my husband's conference call downstairs. She's probably on the couch next to him. I keep the door closed more, so I have no idea where she is right now. This is the longest wait time I've ever done. Oh, there's a Peloton out my window. There are actually joggers too, but there are 10 of them who just went by. They're all 6 feet apart, but there's 10 of them. I feel like I need to stay on for the last 10 minutes because I wouldn't want someone to come and log in and say, "Where'd she go?" She was going to be here for an hour and she scuttered. We don't leave class early, but um, maybe it's a good time to say thank you, because I know it's hard, and my sister texted me. She's a doctor and she's not enjoying working from home right now either, and she has 3 sons, and they're going bananas trying to manage e-learning. And every so often she will text me with something that's kind of critical. And I can be kind of, it's my sister, so I'm allowed. I can be a little defensive for the teachers and say, come on, you got to understand, they've never had to do this before. If you're taking care of patients differently because you have to do it over the phone or by a video conference, then you have to understand they have to take care of their kids differently, and it's going to take some time to get good at this and get our rhythms. But if you know who you serve and you're really hanging in there for the kids and you put them first, they'll figure it out, right? And she's my sister. She's pretty good at hearing that. And I feel like overwhelmingly the people I've heard from in the West community have been so flexible and understanding and offering to help and caring about just how can we do this? How can we do this together? It doesn't feel adversarial and it doesn't feel um, confrontational. It just feels like everybody sort of gets we're all doing the best we can. When I communicate with my staff, they're really hard on themselves. They put so much pressure on themselves, and they miss their kids so badly. And I tell them, just do the best you can. Nobody can ask you to do more than the best you can. But I want to make sure that you turn around and you say that to the kids too. That the work doesn't matter more than they do. The work doesn't matter more than the teachers do. The work doesn't matter more than how they're doing. And because if none of that is going well, if they're not healthy and well and feeling decent, how am I going to teach them equations anyway? So I keep saying first things first. And I feel like in our community, you don't have to say that often. People get it. And I just really deeply appreciate that. So AP exams, that's a good question. I see that in the chat. AP is pivoting. The last I heard, I get a lot of emails from College Board. And the last I read, they are trying to redesign some of the exams so that they could still happen in an abbreviated at-home format. I graded AP exams in English for a long time, and I think on that subject, that's pretty easy to do, actually. I'm not sure what it looks like in some of the other subjects, but they're trying to make that turn so that they could still have an exam. I think there are 1,000 other questions I would have. Having already said that, there's 1,000 other questions that follow on its heels. I don't have the answers to those, except that they're working on it, and that's all I know. As to when those will happen or what they'll look like, all of that is kind of up for grabs. I have been impressed over the last few weeks at how many smart people have put their attention to problems and found solutions quickly. I feel like if I were doing sort of a study of human history and I was looking at this moment, I would say right there, this is where you can see humanity finding its best self, because it's worse self too sometimes, but people are reaching out to each other and smart people are trying to solve problems the best they can. That's true at College Board. I don't always love College Board and I don't love AP all the time. But smart people are going to work on the problem and hopefully figure out something that works the best for kids. Consistently, people are putting kids first, and hopefully that'll be true in AP land too. One thing I've learned in the last week is that my husband is a really loud conference caller. He's a very loud talker. So his conference calls down in the living room are really loud and filter all the way up here. So I can hear him down there. And I was just wondering if you guys could hear him too. I don't know. Maybe his is more interesting. I'll bet she does. Mr. Clark, everybody. Brett Clark is our communications director. He's been helping out on the comments. Brett Clark and John Aldworth have been hugely helpful. And he just wrote in, watch it. My wife says the same about me. That you're interesting or that you're loud? Definitely in a good way, no doubt. Yeah, so we talked a little bit about spring sports. The last I saw from the IHSA, which was today, was that they are completely dependent on whether schools open up and when, and that as that decision gets made, then they can, in turn, make their decisions about spring seasons. They are opening the possibility of extending the season if we were to come back. They could still run an abbreviated spring sport with a with a later championship series or playoff series or whatever, that they're open to going into the summer, but it's pretty. I think we're pretty far from knowing whether that's going to happen. We're closed at least until April 7th, so we'll have to see what happens beyond there. And I'm really sorry about the loss of that experience. I know it's a new water polo coach this year, right? And I know Mr. Kirshner was pretty excited about the experiences those kids were going to have on that team, and for all of our kids on our teams and clubs and activities and the concerts that they're going to miss. um, that's just, it's sad. Makes me appreciate them all the more when we get the chance to have them back. Is it too early to plant things? It's March 25th. I'm not really a gardener. I've never been. um, so much is being canceled, but I'm glad my son has one more year. I'm sad for the seniors. Yeah, we all are. We are all sad that they had this disruption. It's not an ending, it's a disruption. Um, Hope it's not an ending. We'll have to see. Um, and, as we've said on the chat earlier, we're committed to finding a way to honor their experiences, and the whole of their high school experiences, not just this year, in a way that's meaningful and that they can feel good about. Even if it looks different than our existing traditions, we'll do something. Thank everybody for joining. I know we've had people pop on and pop off, and I'm grateful. You've been a great crowd for my first YouTube chat. You guys were very supportive in the comments. I'll run another one, maybe a week from today, and I'm just very grateful that everybody is staying safe and healthy, and that you're staying connected to school. Tell your kids we miss them like crazy, and we are looking forward to seeing them soon. So I'm gonna head out now. Thank you. Take care.